Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly makes it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Xen Soames. That's Xen with an X, not a Z, all over social media. Also, remember that we're now on TV. Tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch a moment of Xen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes are now available on demand. Today, we have a great show lined up in our influencer segment brought to us by Romulus Entertainment. We are chatting with two of Meta's mega influencers, Armand Perry, founder of Hunkomania USA, and Susanna Demouni, a beauty and lifestyle model known as the Barbie doll of Instagram with over 5.5 million followers. They're going to come on to chat with CEO of Romulus Entertainment, Brad Feinstein. My hubby finally makes his debut on the WOR iHeart platform. Today, we are reviewing his latest movie, Bruised. Bruised is Halle Berry's directorial debut, and it's produced by Romulus Entertainment. It was sold to Netflix at the height of the pandemic for a record-breaking upwards of an estimated $20 million. Armand and Susanna will embark in an exclusive Q&A with Brad. And in our Female Trailblazer segment, we are featuring Iesha Reed, a prominent luxury communications brand executive. We are chatting about the underrepresentation of women in media. And finally, in our innovation and tech segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we are chatting fintech, crypto, and tokenization with returning contributor Paul Caldwell, Chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames, joined by Dan Raykham, CEO at Fungible Network. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back with our influencer segment.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus, the time is now. Engage and earn.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Xen Soames. Now, up next, we have our influencer segment, and today we are reviewing the movie Bruised. Now, Bruised is Halle Berry's directorial debut, and it's important to note that it was shot right here in our home state of New Jersey back in 2009. It was produced by Romulus Entertainment and was sold to Netflix at the height of the pandemic for a record-breaking approximately upwards of $20 million. Now, the film's producer, Brad Feinstein, has a knack for selling off films for impressive numbers. He did it once with The Banker, starring Samuel L. Jackson, selling it to Apple for, again, upwards of $20 million. Now, The Banker went on to win an NAACP award. He's done it again, this time with Halle Berry's directorial debut. And today, two of Meta's mega influencers will speak with Brad as we go down an exclusive Q&A with him. Now, joining us today is Armand Perry. He's the founder of Hunkomania Entertainment, a live choreographed male review show for women. And the show has now expanded to over 30 major cities. He's also an influencer of sorts. Also in the segment, we are joined by returning influencer Susanna Demouni. Susanna is a beauty lifestyle influencer with a very large social media platform and fan base. She is known as the Barbie doll of Instagram with over 5.5 million followers. And at the heart of it all is, of course, my knight in shining armor, Brad Feinstein. Brad is a producer and financier of live action films and television. He's the founder and CEO of Romulus Entertainment. He's played a key role in bringing quality films to viewers since 2016. Amongst some of the more impressive films, he's helped produce Oscar-winning Fences, and then he went on to produce films like Beatrice at Dinner in 2017, starring Salma Hayek, and The Banker in 2020. Now, this season, Halle Berry's directorial debut has graced us, and after garnering positive reviews at the 2020 Toronto Film Festival, Netflix premiered the series on November 24th, landing it the #1 movie in the country over the Thanksgiving holidays. Netflix global release of the movie landed the streamer the #1 film in the week slot in the US and has charted at number 2 in its top 10 global English film list. Bruised hit number 1 in a total of 21 countries. And according to Netflix, Bruised went on to stream for 47.7 million hours in just the first 5 days of its release. The film follows the story of MMA fighter Jackie Justice, who embarks on reclaiming her lost title and honor. Welcome to the show, my beautiful friends.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Brad, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to finally be here.
This is Brad's debut on A Moment of Xen. And of course, we are going to debut him in the very special segment, the influencer segment. Now, guys, the script was by Michelle Rosenfarm. It stitches together many storylines. You have Halle Berry playing Jackie Justice, who once had a career as a fighter in the mixed martial arts circuit. She's taken to drink and is locked in an abusive relationship with her former manager. And just as Jackie is contemplating a return to the ring, her mother turns up with the 6-year-old son Jackie abandoned shortly after he was born. Here to break it all down for us with some Q&A is Susanna Demouni. I will let you go first, my superstar.
So this is the first time that Halle Berry has directed a film. And I love that she was a former UFC champion named Jackie Justice. My question is, this is the first time that the UFC has allowed their branding. How did that come about?
Because we were all represented by WME that owns UFC at the time, we were able to go directly to Dana White and the UFC, and they were very gracious to allow us to use things like the actual octagon in the ring. And to have the opportunity to do the first movie that they were ever fully supportive of was really special for us as the filmmakers. And we wanted to make sure we properly protected their brand.
So Brad, you're a film producer. This is a populist film made for the people, correct? Not the critics. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'd like to believe we made it for both. I mean, frankly, there's been really good awards buzz on the film. And if you could do a movie that really speaks to the critics and the people, I think you've made the right kind of film. But at the end of the day, this is a movie that we wanted a lot of people to see. We wanted a broad audience for. And if that's where it lands and we get, 50 to 100 million eyeballs on the film, we did our job.
Beautiful, beautiful. Armand, I will go to you now. I know you spent the last night reviewing the movie and watching it. Give us your take on it.
I thought it was great. The whole plot was great. I thought the cast was amazing. And I think Brad, as always, I'm a fan. You did a great job. I'm from Newark, so I was glad that, something like this took place in Newark. Why did you choose Newark, Brad?
It's interesting. When we decided we were going to make the film, we talked about doing it maybe in Brooklyn or someplace in New York. And I felt like we've seen that version of films before, and we've spent time in each of the boroughs of Manhattan in a lot of films. But New Jersey is a place where we haven't seen a lot of films take place. So I was really animate that I would like to shoot somewhere in Jersey. And we looked at a lot of different options. We looked at Camden, we looked at Atlantic City, and we looked at Newark. And I think Newark's really interesting because you're so close yet so far away from New York City. You can see the skyline, but you're not quite there. You're sort of near everything that's sort of big and glitzy, but it's in some respects a million miles away, and it's full of abject poverty, but also so many hardworking people and a beautiful, diverse tapestry of people, different kinds of restaurants, different kinds of food, different kinds of lifestyles, and I really like that as an aesthetic for the film.
Like I said, I'm partial because I'm originally from Newark, and it is a very diverse. There's a lot of hardworking people in Newark, a lot of immigrants coming from Newark with a lot of dreams, and I think that having that kind of background really, really makes you think. It could be anybody. You know what I mean? And the fact that as an athlete myself, I know what it's like to achieve greatness as an athlete. You have to make a lot of sacrifices, and the character in the movie makes a lot of sacrifices, including, sacrificing not being with her son for so many years. And I like how the plot, how the son comes into her life, and she has a renewed reason to go back into the ring and fight harder than ever. So I think the cast was very well selected, and the topic is extremely current and relevant. LGBT being such a relevant topic right now, and I think you really select, even with the past movies that I've seen that you produce, you really select a lot of profound, topics that and controversial at the same time. So
Absolutely, he does. And that's the one thing with Brad, and I want to make a point here. In Jackie, the character, she's contemplating a return to the ring, and then when her mother turns up with her 6-year-old son, that she abandoned, this is playing into a lot of the guilt and the fears that a lot of modern day millennial moms are facing. And as a result of this troubled past, the boy now doesn't speak. And I thought that it was very interesting that they choose to, that Brad, in the script, it was chosen for him to be mute, so to speak. My question is, was that intentional?
Yes, it was always in the script. It was always written that way, of him having seen something very traumatic of his father's death, and being selectively mute at that point. So look, for me, I always try to choose topics for the films that we make that are somewhat controversial, somewhat on the fringe. I want to talk about things. I want to get into the conversation about things, and I think if we can have films that get us to talk about everything from the LGBTQ movement to racism to diversity to children who are either learning disabled or have issues, I think that's what makes movies interesting, because it really inspires conversation. If we can do that with our films, then we've done it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Susanna, go ahead, Susanna.
I was going to back you up, Sen. I was going to say the same thing. As the child didn't speak throughout the entire movie, but he was able to express himself through his emotions. I thought he was an excellent actor, and I could totally relate. He was very believable. And I also found it, I wanted to know if there was going to be a sequel to the movie, because I really liked at the end that he finally spoke and said thank you big to his mom, to Justice. I was really wondering, is there going to be a sequel to this movie? Because I want to see more of that little boy too.
He's incredible. Hallie and our casting director, Ava Kaufman, found him, and they just did an amazing job picking him. He's the best actor in the business, that kid. So I think he's really special. Danny Boyd, I think he's got a big, long career ahead of him. What a sweet kid. And he's amazing. And you'd be surprised that it's, beyond everyone talking about Hallie and her performance, that's the next most talked about thing in the film, is how incredible that little boy is.
I was reading some reviews. Some people are criticizing Sheila for not being, although she's a great actress, she wasn't really the typical, MMA fighter. Looked like the typical MMA fighter. Why was she why do you feel like she was a good cast member for the part and the character?
So Sheila was a British stage actor who Hallie had seen and really respected and wanted to get for the film. So we had her audition. She was fantastic. And while she's not typical, I think that's the part of the movie. I mean, we've seen the cliche stuff so many times. We didn't need to cast Mickey from Rocky, right? We wanted to take a fresh take on this. And by her name, Budokan is someone who is very Zen with a Z and calm and has a very different perspective. So no, this was not your typical fight trainer, but that's okay. I mean, the goal of this was not to have the cliche version of the film, but in fact sort of turn it on its ear, to flip the fight genre, to have a female fighter, to be in UFC, to have a fighter who feels a bit unexpected, and a trainer who feels unexpected. And I think that's okay. I mean, the reviews that I've read on Sheila have been absolutely phenomenal. Critics have loved her.
Sheila is, in fact, a great actress. And now that brings us to the 1 minute mark, and we are almost out of time. I want to thank Susanna Demouni for coming on and Armand Perry. And of course, thank you, Brad. This was quite exciting. And the first movie review we've done brought to us by Romulus Entertainment. So thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today.
Thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure connecting with you guys.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure meeting you all again.
Brad, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
I have to mention that Bruised has an incredible soundtrack. It features 6 original songs by a lineup of mega platinum award-winning female artists, and their tracks were written and recorded specifically for the film. Additionally, Bruised features 7 previously unreleased inspired by tracks from a roster of very exciting new voices. Definitely check them out on iTunes. You can download the soundtrack now, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. Check out Armand Perry. He's incredible himself at Life Perryway on the gram. You can check out Susanna Demouni at susanna.dxoxo. And of course, the fabulous Brad Feinstein. Check him out on his handle at Romulus_entertainment. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Aikido Pharma, an early-stage pharmaceutical company developing innovative drugs for improving anti-cancer and antiviral therapies. Traded on the NASDAQ under ticker AIKI. They have first-in-class partnerships with leading medical universities like the University of Maryland and the University of Texas. To learn more, go to www.aikidopharma.com.
If you've missed out dining in New York City for the past year, it's time to visit the legendary Vice Cucina. Located in the heart of Midtown, Vice specializes in blending delicious Northern Italian and American cuisine with dishes such as the incredible taglione lobster, ravioli masala, ossobuco, and pappardelle al telefono, along with many other mouthwatering offerings. You deserve a great night out. Call Vice Cucina 212-757-2600 or online at vicecucina.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, coming up in our innovation and tech segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we are going to be chatting fintech, crypto, and tokenization. We have a returning contributor, Paul Caldwell, chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames, joined by Dan Raykham, CEO of Fungible Network. Now, Fungible Network is a tokenization platform for real-world assets. Dan has a knack for building and selling fintech startups, and Fungible Network is a platform that allows for secure and transparent tokenization of liquid assets, and they also provide third-party custody and audit services for the safe storage of those underlying assets. Now, as Paul and Dan get settled into the broadcast room, let's recap digital transformation. Now, digital transformation has been introducing profound improvements across various sectors, especially in the case of digital payments. However, the growth of payment technology has also created noticeable threats for sensitive consumer data. And as our data passes through various points when making digital payments, it becomes vulnerable. Therefore, tokenization blockchain combination is very much accepted as a reliable approach for isolation of data in this very ecosystem. This is where you pay attention. This application of tokens has increased in the payments processing industry for storing credit card information without exposing the original data, keeping your details safe. There you have it. In addition, the use of tokenization in blockchain has been making news for prospects of converting tangible and intangible assets into digital tokens. So what does the new age of tokens mean for the future of blockchain? Well, blockchain and tokenization of assets aren't for every industry. However, several sectors like cannabis, fintech, and cloud computing are really embracing these transactions that allow for essentially better proof of ownership. The reason is that tokens are more secure than other options. Now, you might confuse tokens with cryptocurrency, but note that tokens are used for investment purposes to store value or to make purchases. Cryptocurrencies are digital currencies used to facilitate transactions such as making and receiving payments along the blockchain. For example, altcoins and crypto tokens are types of cryptocurrencies with very different functions. The tokens represent real world items using blockchain technology, and they're transferable once these are in the blockchain, just like cryptocurrency. Okay, this is a lot of complicated stuff. Here to break it all down for us and what this means for the regular people are experts Dan and Paul in our innovation and tech segment. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Paul, I'm going to start with you. In recent headliner, Visa is launching new consulting and advisory services to advise its clients on crypto. The payment giant is now enabling a crypto advisoring practice, and it's going to offer basically advice to financial institutions, retailers, and all kinds of other firms to help them better understand the crypto ecosystem. Now, while the move doesn't directly affect consumers, this is further evidence that cryptocurrency is gaining more mainstream adoption within corporate America, which generally has a positive influence on the value of investors' crypto holdings. What do you say to this?
Generally, I think it's good, Xen, when anyone can educate anyone in a proper way about cryptocurrency or fungibility or non-fungibility, tokenization, because at the end of it, there are very large companies involved in the transaction workflows, no matter what, when you start talking about payments. And when you start talking about payment structures and you start talking about things like merchant services, companies like, for example, Fiserv, as an example, its acquisition of First Data put Fiserv in a whole nother place. The interesting thing about that is whenever you go look at a Clover machine at a restaurant or wherever, and you're going to pay with a credit card, they are in the middle of that transaction. So they make some money from that merchant, let's say 3% or whatever. Visa, MasterCard, the credit cards that you use to swipe when you pay that, if you pay with a crypto card, a crypto only credit card, let's say a crypto Visa, these are becoming more and more troublesome in the middleware, in the middle of the transactions, because while it makes sense at Visa and it makes sense for the consumer to have that crypto card, the middle layer, these billion-dollar corporations that have to service that merchant's transaction, merchant services companies like Fiserv, they have to consider other things. For example, what happens if you buy something with Bitcoin, you buy your shoes with a Bitcoin Visa, but then you go return those shoes? What happens? How do you get paid back? What's the liquidity? How does that work? It's not just as easy as if A, then B, then C. There really is a lot that happens there. And these companies, these big companies in the middle of the transaction, do not want to eat that cost because they have to service that refund to that consumer. That retailer has to process that refund to that consumer. But someone at the end of the day has to settle that refund and pull that money back. And if that's in cryptocurrencies and there's been a huge swing in the value of that particular coin, let's say Bitcoin, this month even, but someone has 30 days or whatever to return something, it gets very interesting in the middle. So I've been sitting on some forums, some CEO forums that have been talking about this with some of these larger organizations. I find it very interesting. I think it's going to break free, but I think generally speaking, the more education, the better.
Absolutely. There's beauty and power in simple concepts like replacing sensitive data with tokens to make digital payments more secure. But they're scratching beneath the surface, and powerful technologies are enabling tokens to do so much more than just reduce payment fraud. Dad, blockchain has transformed the ways in which we invest in assets, and tokenization is the answer. It's the process of transforming ownership rights of an asset into a digital token. For example, you can transform an apartment worth $200,000 into a total of 200,000 tokens, with each token amounting to almost 0.00005% of the apartment's value, so to speak. So basically, blockchain tokens provide a digital representation of complete or shared ownership for any entity having specific value. Walk us through some of the different types of assets that you can convert to tokens.
Well, the simplest form of tokenization is tokenizing equity in the company. And there are a number of companies doing this already. You can issue equities under Reg D or Reg A and give the tokens to the equity investors. Now they have investment in the private company, but that investment is a lot more liquid as what you would have in the past. So that's number one. Real estate is also a very interesting area. As you suggested, people can buy a fraction of an apartment, or I can tokenize an apartment. It could be a rentable property, and now you have a token that can generate yield to the investors. So these are very kind of simple ideas. Also, you can tokenize commodity like gold. People can buy gold in tokenized form as well.
Interesting. Very interesting. I read an article that our good friend Paul sent me that you wrote way back before all the NFTs kind of were all the rage, and these non-fungible assets are the ones that couldn't be broken into small pieces. So tokenization helps in breaking down non-fungible assets into digital shares, which you can trade either fully or in a limited way. But it's interesting that you made that parallel and analogy in an article that was basically published in 2018. So I was quite impressed, Dan. Paul, access to banking, and this is kind of going to tie back into what you started saying earlier. Access to banking is an immense problem for several e-commerce companies. Regulation and monopolies can prevent easy access to finance for small startups. And blockchain technology is helping solve the sector's problems by allowing them to bypass traditional banking and speed up transactions without compromising security, bringing me to OGPay. OGPay is one of those platforms. Walk us through the differences of the traditional payment platform versus the hybrid ones that also incorporate blockchain and crypto like OGPay.
A simple example, Zen, OGPay is a great example of that as far as decentralized finance and fintech being married to interoperable layers with traditional types of banking and being able to operate these things being able to operate together. For example, if you lose your Visa card today that's tied to your checking account at your traditional bank, someone can go swipe the card, press credit, and buy a bunch of stuff. And of course, you'll get your money back. I mean, it's security. It's secure. You'll be fine. It's fraud and all that. And you'll get your money back. But you have to go through the hassle and so forth. OGPay is Visa card, debit Visa card, virtual and physical card, are not directly tied to the same checking account, the same account that is tied to your mobile wallet, but they have an interoperability that allows you to move money instantly from your mobile wallet to your debit card anytime you want to buy something with that debit card, and then simply pay for it. If you were to lose your physical OGPay Visa card, you can simply turn it off immediately, and there's no reason to keep money on it because it interoperates with the mobile wallet, and the money just moves on and off the card as it's needed. So it's not, no one's able to press credit or able to defraud at that level. So there's this multi-factor authentication technology that's built in there that prevents this type of fraud. So it's kind of like a financial firewall, if you will. If you were talking about technology firewalls, it's like a financial firewall that you can get as a benefit of all of that. And then with cryptocurrencies on OGPay, the buying, the selling, and the sending and receiving, everything is KYC'd, AML'd, and KYT'd at the transactional layer. So I believe it's that type of direction going forward that the companies that really prevail in the space will really matter. And then with Dan, we acquired Dan's business this past year and into our private enterprise portfolio. And I'll tell you, talk about education. Dan has been a wealth of knowledge and education for us here as well.
Let's go back to Dan. Let's go back to Dan because we have about 2.5 minutes left. Dan, I'm going to kind of touch on security here. So the greatest amount of pressure now being applied to banks by regulators is for card not present, CNP fraud. That's essentially online transactions made with a stolen credit card and scheme debit card, right. Visa, MasterCard. As attacks and these fraudsters increase their sophistication and continue to target consumers, there has to be another way to fight credit card fraud. Now, blockchain can be used to help credit cards retain their authenticity in a global market. Walk us through some of the scenarios in where blockchain tokenization can help prevent, say, credit card fraud in about less than a minute and a half.
Yeah, I will just continue saying what Paul was saying. Effectively, the credit card or debit card, in case of OGPay, has no value stored on it. The value is stored in your mobile wallet, and mobile wallet is protected by the blockchain's technology. Security is built into the blockchain. So every time I swipe my card, we transfer whatever the minimum amount has to be transferred to the card to satisfy that transaction.
But
So if
that's
I
on
lose-
OG. But that's on OG Pay. But how would Visa or Mastercard or these bigger companies incorporate this if they don't have a hybrid platform like OG Pay has?
That's a good point. What they can do, I guess, they can. So one of the things with the blockchain, all transactions are on the blockchain, and you can always audit every single transaction. If somebody loses the card and the card has the, can I swipe that card? I think as long as you have a physical card and you're relying on that card, there are still issues with the security. I think Visa and MasterCard, what they're looking at in terms of the blockchain, they're looking at minimizing the transaction cost and giving their merchant, their customers, ability to do the transactions at a fraction of the cost.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that, to put it simply, when a consumer wants to make a transaction with their card and uses a tokenized payment system, the system encrypts the information on the card, confirms it, and sends it out to the seller. The information is then encrypted thanks to the blockchain system that is continuously storing information and encrypting it like over and over again to prevent intrusion, which makes total sense. And now we are out of time, my friends, but I would love to pick up this conversation. Paul, of course, I'm going to see you on our next Innovation in Tech. Thank you for joining the show, gentlemen.
See you, Zen. Thanks. Take care.
You got it. That was Paul Caldwell and Dan Raykham. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus, the time is now. Engage and earn.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Soames. Now, up next, we're going to be speaking with Iesha Reed, a prominent luxury communications brand executive. One of the many topics that we are covering on today's show will be tackling the underrepresentation of women in the media. Now, behind the scenes, men still occupy 73% of top media management positions, while women represent half of the world's population. Less than 1/3 of all speaking characters in film are female. Cyber violence has extended in the harassment and stalking of women and girls to the internet. Around the world, women are far less likely than men to be seen in the media. As subjects of stories, women only appear in 1/4 of television, radio, and print news. In a 2019 report, women made up a mere 19% of experts featured in news stories and 37% of reporters telling stories globally. Behavioral scientists who study women's underrepresentation in the workplace conclude that this gender imbalanced picture of society only reinforces and perpetuates harmful gender stereotypes. It is clear that the media must change how it reflects the world, but who can change media itself? None other than our next guest. Iesha has been paving the way for women in PR and media for quite some time. On my show, we feature women and all their accomplishments, but Iesha is something else. With over 15 years of experience in communication, both in-house and agency, she has been recognized as a style influencer, public speaker, arts and education advocate, and champion for women's causes. She has held executive roles at global luxury consumer retail companies, including Swarovski, Montblanc, Ralph Lauren, and is a publicist for high-profile entertainment and sports personalities. She is a trailblazer, a rising star with a platinum heart and spirit. Welcome to the show, stunning lady.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, how can I come back for what you just said about me? Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited to have you on. Now, let's chat about the work that you do, the role that you play in your clients' lives, and talk to me a little bit about how you have paved the way for yourself and essentially not become a statistic of being underrepresented in the media, because you are at the center of it all.
Yeah, you know, it's my position is the brand keeper. My position is also the brand message to the consumer, and you know, to the point of reference when you see any client or any brand that I represent, you know, it's me to protect the brand. It's me to also carve and cave those stories that make sure that, you know, the consumer really understands who the product is or who the celebrity is. That takes a lot of hard work. I mean, it's definitely making sure that all of the stories that our clients have and all of the stories that the brands have, those stories are told to the consumers in a way that they understand not only who the person is, but also what they represent. And I try to always pick clients and products that believe in the same things that I believe in and sort of walk on the same walk that I'm walking on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. I mean, that's, of course, you know, I mean, you want to be properly represented and in exchange properly represent. Now, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are happening in advertising, but it has not really been addressed at the PR media level. For instance, you know, wanting women to have a seat at the table because it makes the table look better, but they don't really want us to have a voice. You know, whether we are in the spotlight or strategizing on how to shift with the media landscape behind the scenes, women are changing the way stories are told. But what's your response to having a seat at the table but not having a voice?
You know, I always believe if you don't have a seat at the table, you sort of make your own. And I do feel like as an African-American woman from the South, moved to New York about 21 years ago, it was always, you know, very, very hard for me to get into those rooms. And I just continued to work hard and make sure that, you know, I represented myself in a way that I did have a voice and I made my voice heard. I think that's always the best advice for me, for anyone that is listening to this podcast or just in life, period. As women, we have to work extra harder. We have to be extra smarter. As a brown skinned woman, I've had to work quite harder than a lot of my colleagues to be able to create that voice. And I think you just stand on your beliefs, you stand on what you believe in, and you're good. You stay good, and you make sure that you don't you know, take anything for granted, or even, you know, any voice that you may have on any opinion. You make sure those opinions are known and spoken.
Amen, sister. You said it. You said it. And look, in streaming, we have Nigerian visionary Mo Abudu's Ebony Life. That became the first African production company to score a multi-title deal with
Amazing.
Netflix last year to create 2 series and several films. And then you have Ava DuVernay. She's continuing to forge new partnerships for Array, her collective focus. She's focused on films by people of color and women. And she signed a multi-year deal with Spotify in January for a slate of exclusive scripted and unscripted podcast shows. So here you have women paving the way, especially women of color. And today we celebrate women in all trailblazing positions, including stay-at-home moms. So that mom thing, walk me through how you balance work, family, and giving enough attention to, you know, to being a mom, but as well as a career woman.
You know, it's absolutely, I say all the time, you know, we have 100% of ourselves, and, you know, not any person that's in our life, even our children and our work, they're not going to get 100%. I've always, you know, I had to travel a lot for work overseas. I spent a lot of time in Europe when my son was 2-3 years old. And I missed a lot of things that, you know, first days of school that, you know, I used to give myself complete grief about. And then I realized that on the back end, it was going to pay out. You know, now I take him to school every morning. He's an actor, so I'm running him to auditions in between working. So, you know, it's all a balance, and you just have to make sure that you're not so hard on yourself, and also understand that, you know, you provide a great foundation. And I have his father's amazing, and I have a lot of great people around me that's able to kind of pick in when I'm not necessarily there. But he's super proud of me. I'm always, you know, letting him know what I'm doing. I take him on work trips so he can understand that mommy's working, and that's okay. I may not be able to be at one basketball game, but I'll definitely be at the next one. And
exactly.
That's what we have to do.
It's balancing it all out, because it does plague me as well, you know, between being a full-time working mom on the show, being a full-time actress, and, you know, working on current film sets, balancing it out, being home for my daughter, it plagues me, right? Because at some point you're thinking, well, who's harder to please, my work or my child?
Right. And then you have your husband.
And then you have your husband. And that's, believe me, it's women giving of ourselves all the time. If men balance certain things very differently than women, and I think because we are women, we have learned to selflessly just give of ourselves in all of these different areas, whether it's work, family, but we do it 100%, and we do it with passion and love, because that's what, you know, that's the foundation. The root of everything is mom. If mom's not happy, nobody's
one's happy. And we put it all together. I mean, we are, we have husbands that, work, that have massive careers as well. I mean, my husband and I, we would always try to figure out sort of, which career is more important. And I was always fighting for mine, because I'm like, mine is just as important as yours.
Exactly.
Mine is just as important as yours.
Okay. So we have about a minute and a half left, and I want to get to your Billionaires Row. I know that's you're working with that client. Tell me about what they are and what they do.
This is an amazing project that I'm working on that I definitely have to tell you about. I mean, I am the chief marketing officer of the only Black owned and operated champagne company, made in Champagne, water company, and cognac. They have 3 tiers of product, and it's just amazing. It's 2 guys, 2 entrepreneurs decided to start a business in this area because they saw the misrepresentation on the spirit side, and they plugged me as their CMO. And it's such an exciting project because they're growing, and we're growing so super fast. And everything the story represents is just amazing. A Black man that has his own name on a champagne that's made in Champagne, France, is something that I'm super proud of. I've worked for European companies my whole life, and I'm just super excited to be able to take all of the experience that I have to be able to throw into these guys and really help them build out, something that is history making.
That's beautiful. Billionaires Row, you said it. That was the perfect commercial and the perfect plug. History making, minority owned, paving the way. They saw there was a need in the spirits world, and they jumped on board as visionaries. Couldn't ask for more. And you know what? They have the magic formula. They got you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And you can always go to the website, www.billionairesrow.com. And I'm Iesha Reed at Iesha R.
That's right. Of course. Everybody check them out. That was Iesha Reed. Thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome talking to you.
Great talking to you. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Guys, check out billionairesrow.com. This, just as it sounds, billionairesrow.com. And you can check Iesha Reed out on the gram at Iesha, at Iesha with an R. And her name has an E in it, IESHAR. She's on the gram. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Aikido Pharma, an early-stage pharmaceutical company developing innovative drugs for improving anti-cancer and antiviral therapies. Traded on the NASDAQ under ticker AIKI. They have first-in-class partnerships with leading medical universities like the University of Maryland and the University of Texas. To learn more, go to www.aikidopharma.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my friends. That takes us to the end of our date. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or go to 710WOR.iheart.com/A Moment of Zen to download the podcast. Remember, we're now on TV. Download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV or Android TV. Tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch A Moment of Zen live on the Impact channel Sundays at 11 a.m. All episodes are now available on demand. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Remember to tune back in next Saturday night at 9 p.m. Of course, thanks again to all of our sponsors. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.